I never really talked about anime on this channel, and there's a couple reasons for that. For one, I don't really watch a lot of anime these days. I used to watch it a lot, but at some point I think I got kind of burnt out on it, and then I kind of quit for a while. And you know, occasionally I'll watch something that I kind of like. I liked Cells at Work. It was a fun, clever show, very educational too. I liked My Hero Academia for a while. I need to catch up on that, by the way. I've been watching lately Delicious in Dungeon, and I like it, but I originally thought it was called Delicious Dungeon, but no, it's Delicious in Dungeon. I'm not sure why it's called that. I kind of like mine better. Just rolls off the tongue better. Delicious Dungeon. That's what I'm going to call it. And the other reason, and this is arguably the more important reason, is copyright. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, the owners of the copyrights of anime tend to be a little aggressive when it comes to people doing YouTube videos and stuff. I have had actually some claims put on the few times I reviewed an anime on Cartoon Clip Show. They've been taken care of ever since, but yeah, those claims come back every once in a while, but I usually end up taking care of them. Apparently I'm not important enough to sue, so they just kind of go away. But I have heard some worse stories out there. I've heard of YouTubers getting their whole channels taken down and even getting legal documents sent to them from Japan. Because in the US, and I think some other countries, we have fair use laws where it's like, if you're doing it for commentary purposes or educational purposes, you can use copyrighted material, but a lot of countries don't acknowledge that, and I think Japan is one of them, and they tend to be pretty aggressive about that. So I try not to do anything that might put the channel in jeopardy. So for this video, when I get to talking about the anime, I will be using no audio, no footage, just still shots. So hopefully that'll be okay. Please don't sue me, I have nothing. But I have been wanting to do an anime video for a long time now, and I believe in some of my earlier videos on this channel, I did kind of allude to it. I was kind of teasing it for a while, but I kept putting it off, and I got distracted by other projects and had other things to do, and the way I was going to do it kept changing, and then I just kind of put it off. But then I figured, you know what, I think now's a good time to do it. Because I've been sitting on this idea for a long time, so we might as well just get it out now. And before we get into the main part of this video, I think it's important we go over exactly how we got here. So the original idea was I was going to do a top 5 anime everyone likes but I don't video, and then follow it up with a top 5 anime everybody hates but I don't. But upon reflecting on my choices for those videos, I came to the conclusion that there aren't really any anime titles that I like that other people don't. I tend to like a lot of the same things I've seen other people like, and I didn't want to do another top 5 things that everyone likes but I don't video, because I just don't like doing those types of videos anymore. The problem is the videos that I've previously done with that subject are some of my most popular and most viewed videos on this channel, because YouTube keeps sending them to people because the algorithm loves negativity. Thanks, YouTube. Good first impression you're giving people of me. I should mention that the top 5 anime titles everyone likes but I don't video was going to open up with a bit of me putting on armor and readying weapons and putting on a helmet. The joke, of course, being that anime fans tend to be very touchy about their little hobby, that any negative opinion will have me trying to defend myself from them. I actually scrapped that idea very early on, and I wasn't going to do it. But here's the thing. I got a little bit carried away with that idea, that years ago I ended up ordering the props for it, and these have been sitting in my costume bin for a very long time now, and I finally have a chance to justify their costs. So comedy. Should I just wear this for the video? I'm gonna wear this for the video. That way anybody that skips ahead is gonna be wondering why I'm wearing a helmet. Shame on you for skipping the video. Watch the whole thing. So after that, I figured the best thing to do is maybe do my top 10 favorite anime titles. But even then, just looking at my picks, like, there was nothing really special on that list. Like I said, most of the anime I like is well liked by other people, and I've seen other people's top 10 videos, and there would be very similar to my own. So I felt like there wasn't really going to be anything special about doing that. I mean, maybe I'll put up images of some titles that I like here just so people know. But I feel like, you know, what was I going to do? Being another person that put Cowboy Bebop at the #1 spot? That's boring. We're better than that here. So here we are, and you know what? I just decided I'm going to talk about a couple of anime titles that I like, but nobody really talks about anymore. I know some of these picks were pretty popular at their time, but they kind of faded from public consciousness for a while. Although one in particular was not really known by anybody, but we'll get into that. So these are going to be my, I guess, top 5 underappreciated or underrated or not talked about anime titles video. Yeah. So I got 5 picks here. I'm going to talk about them pretty briefly so I don't give away too much about the plot or any big plot twists. And while they are numbered, they're not really in any particular order. This is more just for organization purposes. So let's begin the much anticipated anime video. This is not going to go well. Alright, number 5 is Mushishi. So this one I know for sure was pretty popular when it first came out, but I haven't really heard many people talk about it in a very long time, so I feel like it's worth bringing up again because when I saw it, I thought it was really cool. It has an interesting vibe to it that I kind of dig. Describing the show, though, is a bit of a challenge. So the show is kind of an anthology series, and I do love a good anthology, which is probably one of the reasons I liked it so much. It's about these creatures that are kind of spirits, kind of animals, very strange things. Some of them are insect-like, some of them seem very otherworldly, and they exist in the forest and occasionally will cause trouble for someone in their life. And there's this guy, the main character, his name is Ginkgo. He's a person that studies these creatures and wants to, you know, help people who are being troubled by them. Like I said, this is an anthology show, so each episode is pretty self-contained. It's basically a new adventure, new problem per each episode. And there's very little in the way of continuity, so each episode is kind of self-contained. There is a little bit of continuity, but it's not really that important. What I do like about it is that each episode, with whatever problem the Mushi is causing for someone, usually has some sort of connection to a problem that they're having in their real lives. So there's a lot of deeper themes with the show. I guess that's the best I can do for talking about this show for now, because otherwise I'd be going into individual episodes, and it's, you know, a show that I want people to see, so I don't really want to go into that right now. But one weird thing about it is that I've heard it described as a horror anime, but I don't know if I would call it a horror anime. It certainly has a few creepy moments, but I find it more weird than horror. I will also say that this is probably not a show for everybody. In fact, when it first came out and I watched it and really liked it, I tried to tell some friends about it, and yeah, they were not into it at all. So I would say give this one a try. It was very popular when it first came out, like I said. It even got a live-action adaptation, which is apparently pretty good, and that's kind of a rare thing, especially for anime. So I would say if it sounds interesting, give it a shot. Watch a couple episodes, see if it's something you're into, and if not, I guess that's okay. All right, number 4, Baccano. Or Baccano. I still don't know the correct pronunciation of that. So this is another one that I think was pretty popular when it first came out, although I don't think it reached the same popularity as Mushishi did. But I do remember a lot of people really liking it. This is another weird one, although it's weird because it's an anime about 1930s gangsters in Chicago. You don't see that very often when it comes to anime, although it does skip around to other places and other settings. And without revealing too much, there is a supernatural element to this, so it's a little bit more than that. It also has a very interesting way of storytelling because it skips around through the whole storyline from different time periods and different locations. So it's a very non-linear show. It's kind of very Tarantino way of storytelling. I also recommend checking out the dub for this one if you can, because the voice actors actually did some era-appropriate accents. So there's a lot of wise guy talk, stuff like that. And I really appreciate that they did that. And I think they did a pretty good job with it. I should also mention how I got into this anime, because very rarely am I ever sold on not just anime but anything based solely on the intro. Look up the intro to this show because it's really good. It's a lot of fun, and it has a very creative way of introducing all the characters, and there are a lot of characters in this show. So with this one, you can expect a lot of violence, a lot of bloodshed, a lot of shooting, a lot of Tommy guns. But it also has kind of a sense of humor, and the way it presents itself is a lot of fun. A lot of like the fight scenes and more tense moments are kind of just fun to watch. Just all the fighting, and they have the wacky 1930s music playing, and it's just a great show. I really like it. In fact, I should probably rewatch it one of these days. All right, number 3 is Ghost Hound. This one was definitely not nearly as popular as the last two titles I talked about, and it's a shame because it seemed like it went unnoticed for a while, and it's definitely been unnoticed nowadays. And this is a horror title. Unlike Mushishi, this is a more traditional horror with ghosts and creepy atmosphere and lots of weird, disturbing images. And this is subtle horror, which I tend to prefer my horror to be. As much as I love hack and slash stuff, I kind of like this, where there's atmosphere and anticipation and mystery, and you never know what's going to happen next. And there are spooks and even a couple of jump scares, but they're very few and far between and very strategically placed. The show mainly focuses on this kid who dealt with a very grisly, traumatic incident. And because of that, he's become more heightened to spiritual activity. And you see him dealing with that too. Like, he goes to therapy and he talks to people and he has friends that help him deal with it. But they also have to deal with the actual ghosts and spirits that are haunting their city. There's also a girl that has psychic powers, and every time something weird happens, she feels it, and she can also detect the presence of spirits. And there's this whole thing about a rift from another world where these spirits are coming through. And now that I'm really saying this out loud, it kind of sounds like I'm describing Stranger Things. This anime, I believe, was from 2005 or 2006. I don't remember which one, but it was way before Stranger Things probably was ever even a thing. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Duffer Brothers have seen this show and maybe took some ideas from it for Stranger Things. One thing I will say about the show is I kind of like the first half more than the second half. As more story unfolds, there's this whole plot about a cult or something, and it gets a little bit convoluted, in my opinion. But the first half is very fascinating because they talk about like quantum mechanics and how spirits can work and how your soul could work, and a lot of theoretical stuff like that. And I do find that kind of fun and interesting. I should also mention this show was done by the creator of Ghost in the Shell, and the writer was one of the head writers for Serial Experiments Lain. So if you're familiar with those two titles, you pretty much know what you're in for this one. I don't know where you can watch it nowadays. I tried to find the DVD not too long ago, and it's long out of print and very expensive. But if you could find it, I definitely recommend it, and maybe it'll be something fun to put on around Halloween time. All right, number 2, and I will be amazed if anyone even knows what this one is. It's an anime from 2003, and it was never brought to the US. It's called Uninhabited Planet Survive. So the plot of the show is it's the future, and this group of school kids, while on a school trip in space, end up getting stranded on an island on an unknown planet, and they have to survive. And of course, they're from all different walks of life, and they gotta learn to get along and work together and not get eaten by the monsters that are on the island. And they got to figure out how to live and what they can eat. And they one thing that I will say about the show is that one of the characters has a little robot friend, this little cat. And every time they find like a thing, the cat will just scan it and it's like, yeah, that's safe to eat. And I feel like that's cheating a little bit. I like the character and all, but I feel like it would have been a little bit more impactful if they used their own skills, their own set of skills, their own knowledge to survive, which they do, but I feel like the robot gives them a bit of a head start. That seems a little unfair. And as much as I do like the show and I find it very engaging, it is very long. It's a 52 episode anime, and that's way too long for what the premise is. And about halfway through, things kind of change a little bit. The plot becomes a little bit thicker as they discover what the secrets are of the planet that they're stranded on. And it's not that it's bad or anything, but the pacing definitely needed some work. Like, they could have very easily cut this down to like a 26 episode show instead of a 52 episode. It's a bit of a nitpick, and it's not that big of a deal because the show can be very engaging and enjoyable, but it feels like it just goes on for a little bit too long. I would say those are the only things that it has against it, because I do really like the show, and it's a shame that it never came to the US, because I could have totally seen this on Toonami or something. But apparently it had some trouble coming over, from what I understand. 2003 and 2004 were like really big years for anime because they started to become more popular in the US. The anime started hitting mainstream really hard, and a lot of shows gained a lot of popularity. Like Naruto and One Piece were rising in popularity. Bleach had just premiered. Full Metal Alchemist, the first series, had just premiered. So unfortunately, a show like this kind of got lost in the mix. Now, I should mention too that a friend of mine who knew that I really liked this show alerted me to another anime title that came out in 2019 called Astra Lost in Space, which has a very similar premise to Uninhabited Planet Survive. Yeah, it's the future. It's a bunch of kids on a school trip in space that ended up getting stranded. So there is a very similar premise here, but the plot is very different. And there are many differences between the two shows. For example, the kids in Survive ended up on an island on a planet. These kids in Astra ended up in orbit in space, and they just happened upon a derelict spaceship, which they were able to use and survive and return home. There are some major differences, though. The kids in Uninhabited Planet Survive got stranded by complete accident. However, in Astra, and I don't want to reveal too much about the plot because this is definitely one you should check out for yourself, it turns out that them getting stranded might have been part of a conspiracy that kind of unfolds as the show goes on and is actually pretty clever and well written. It's also a lot shorter. I think it's only 12 episodes long, so it utilizes its time well, and it paces itself a lot better than Uninhabited Planet Survive. The one thing that Survive has over Astra is that I feel like that show, despite the sci-fi setting, is a little bit more grounded. The kids feel very natural and very realistic, whereas in Astra, let's just say it falls into a lot of the typical anime tropes, despite its setting and its plot. Let me put it to you this way. Even though they're lost in space, they managed to have a beach episode. So yeah. I did really like Astra, and I guess I'll give that one an honorable mention because I don't really hear people talk about that one either. And it actually has an English dub, so if you prefer that, you have the option. But I do highly recommend Uninhabited Planet Survive. I feel like that show did not get its fair due, and it's mostly because it was never localized, and most people here probably never even heard about it, and I don't even know how popular it was in Japan. I'm guessing not very, because I hardly ever see anything about it. Even at the time, I didn't see much. But despite the length and a couple of the small gripes I have with it, I did really, really like it. It's engaging, it's interesting, it's fun to watch. The characters are likable and memorable and have a lot of development. So if you can find it, and I don't know where you can find it nowadays, check it out. Thank God I saved those fan subs I downloaded all those years ago. Alright, the final one, and even though I know this one is pretty popular with a lot of people, I feel like it's always worth bringing up. It's Record of Lodoss War. So, you ask someone who's, let's just say, in my age range, what some of their favorite anime titles might be, odds are this one's gonna come up. As far as I'm concerned, Record of Lodoss War is the fantasy anime, the one by which all others should be judged. Because this is pure fantasy. We're talking like real Dungeons and Dragons level. In fact, if you watch the first episode of the OVA, Yeah, it's Dungeons and Dragons, right down to the character classes and the dungeon crawling and the dragon fighting. In fact, the series, if I remember correctly, is heavily inspired by Dungeons and Dragons because it started out as a series of novels in the 80s and then eventually got an anime adaptation and some other supplemental material. We'll talk about those. I have watched other fantasy anime over the years, and I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I'm watching Delicious Dungeon. I like mine better. But one of the things that I noticed about them is that there's a much, much heavier emphasis on comedy. I mean, sure, there's action and serious story and everything, but my God, they lay on the comedy so thick in some of these shows. Record of Lodoss War is the opposite of that. Which in a way can be kind of a detriment because there's not a lot of levity in this show. It's all talking and traveling and expositing and meetings and blah, 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 blah. I would say that if you're okay with something like Lord of the Rings or like Game of Thrones, where it's just a lot of talking and talking and talking until you get to that action and the good stuff, which is really good, you should be okay watching this. There is quite a lot of Record of Lodoss War too. There is the OVA series, which is where everything starts. I recommend checking that out first. It is very short too, so it's not that much of a slog. Then there is the TV series, which is a lot longer. Here's the thing about the TV series though. There seems to be some continuity issues between that and the OVA, because in the TV show they mention plot points and characters from the OVA, so implying that this is a direct sequel to that, but there's characters they meet in the TV series that they met in the OVA and act like they met them for the first time ever. And so I don't know if maybe there was some kind of like writing issue or maybe some kind of localization error, but that does kind of enter into this. Don't let that fool you though, because it is still very good. This actually helps also with the levity problem, because there's a little bit more comedy in this, a little bit more lightheartedness. Not too much, but at the end of each episode, they have a segment called Welcome to Lodoss Island, which is basically a recreation of the episode that you just watched, just done more comedically with little chibi characters of the main characters. So there is that, and it's kind of cute. I also have this, which is a bootleg of the TV series. I, at the time, did not realize this was a bootleg, so I bought it, and now I have it, and I can't get rid of it. But if you make it through the OVA and the TV show, then you can check out The Legend of Crystania. So this is definitely something no one ever talks about. In fact, I don't even remember if these are any good. I think I watched these once and never again, because they are a sequel to the TV show. Long story short, and without revealing too much, at the end of the TV show, a couple of characters leave, and this follows what they did when they left. It's 4 short movies, I believe. Again, I don't remember if they're any good. They might be worth a rewatch, but if you're looking for a deep dive, you have these also. I don't know where you can find these anymore. This is a ADV Essential Anime Collection. This is long out of print. These might be worth a lot of money. Then there's a lot of supplemental material. There's plenty of books and comics. This is The Lady of Pharis, which I have not read in a long time. I don't even remember where this takes place in the continuity. I'm thinking maybe this is a prequel or something. And there's also plenty of video games too. There was a game for the Dreamcast, and a couple of years ago they put out a game on PC called Deedlit and the Magical Labyrinth, which is a Metroidvania type of game. And I love the fact that we got a recent installment of Record of Lodoss War. That's crazy to me. And apparently it's really good. I should maybe stream it one of these days, but I'll deal with that some other time. But yeah, if you hadn't known, Record of Lodoss War, whenever it gets mentioned from an elderly member of the anime community, is a much bigger series than you might think it is. So definitely, if you've not seen it, it's a show that a lot of older anime fans cut their teeth on, and it's definitely worth checking out. Like I said, maybe not for everybody. If you're okay with just a lot of expositing and a lot of slow build up to something big, then you should be okay watching it, but definitely check it out. Alright, so that's the anime video, or I guess whatever's left of it after all these years. Leave a comment and let me know if there's any anime that nobody talks about that you think is really good. or you think is very underrated, or just tell me what you think of any of these titles. Has anybody out there seen Uninhabited Planet Survive? I'd love to know your thoughts. And if you like this video, maybe I'll do a follow-up one. I'm pretty sure I can dig up a couple more titles that nobody ever talks about that I really liked. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, leave a comment, check out my other videos, leave a like, and I guess I will see you guys later.